Hello and welcome to this edition of Back in History. In Back in History, we take you through the events that occurred in the historical past. In this edition, we bring to you the full text of the first radio broadcast of General Murtala Mohammed, who made the broadcast on Radio Nigeria to the people of Nigeria and to the world on 30th July 1975, moments after the seizure of power from General Gowon. Nigeria gained independence from Britain in October 1960. Barely 6 years from independence, Nigeria witnessed its first military coup. This coup was so bloody, and several very important persons in the country were eliminated in the process. The coup took place on 15th January 1966. Tafawa Balewa, the first Prime Minister of Nigeria, was eliminated in the coup. Ahmadu Bello, the first Premier of Northern Nigeria, and the highly respected Sardauna of Sokoto was also eliminated in the coup. His wife Hafsatu was also eliminated. In the southern region of Nigeria, the Minister of Finance, Festus Okotie-Eboh, was eliminated. The Premier of the Western region, Ladoke Akintola, was also eliminated. Several senior military officers were also eliminated. Some civilians were equally eliminated in the same coup. It was a bloody coup by all standards. The coup was executed by a group of majors in the Nigerian army led by Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeogu. Some sources, however, said that the brain behind the coup was Major Emmanuel Ifeajuna. These majors were strategically located in different parts of the country to carry out their own sides of the execution of the coup. As noted earlier, several leaders of the country were killed in the coup, but the coup plotters were unable to take over the reins of power. Their coup was frustrated by loyal soldiers, and in the aftermath, power was handed over to the most senior military officer in the country at the time, in the person of General Aguiyi Ironsi. Ironsi only ruled as military head of state of Nigeria for 6 months before he was eliminated in Ibadan, in the then western region of Nigeria, in a counter coup that was executed in July 1966 by officers from the northern region of the country. With Ironsi eliminated, the seat of power was vacant and someone needed to fill the gap. Yakubu Gowon, a young Christian military officer from the northern region of Nigeria, was selected by his colleagues as the new military head of state of Nigeria. Gowon commenced his administration in earnest and saw to the prosecution of the Biafra-Nigeria War, which lasted for 30 months. After the war, Gowon continued in office with no clear plan to conduct election and hand over power to democratically elected leaders. He remained in office for almost 9 years in total, and in 1975, Gowon was removed from office by a group of senior military officers while Gowon was in faraway Kampala attending the meeting of the Organization of African Unity, OAU. From then on, Gowon ceased to be the head of state of Nigeria. Few days after, Gowon held a press conference in Kampala and pledged his loyalty to the new military government back home in Nigeria. He later departed to the United Kingdom, where he enrolled in the University of Warwick as a student of political science. He was immediately succeeded by General Murtala Mohammed. Murtala then made his first radio broadcast to the nation and to the world. And here is a full text of the said broadcast. Unquote. Fellow Nigerians, events of the past few years have indicated that despite our great human and material resources, the government has not been able to fulfill the legitimate expectations of our people. Nigeria has been left to drift. This situation, if not arrested, would inevitably have resulted in chaos and even bloodshed. In the endeavor to build a strong, united and viral nation, Nigerians have shed much blood. The thought of further bloodshed for whatever reasons, must, I am sure, be revolting to our people. The armed forces, having examined the situation, came to the conclusion that certain changes were inevitable. After the Civil War, the affairs of state, hitherto a collective responsibility, became characterized by lack of consultation, indecision, indiscipline, and even neglect. Indeed, the public at large became disillusioned and disappointed by these developments. This trend was clearly incompatible with the philosophy and image of a corrective regime. Unknown to the general public, the feeling of disillusionment was also evident among members of the armed forces whose administration was neglected, but who, out of sheer loyalty to the nation and in the hope that there would be a change, continued to suffer in silence. Murtala went on to say, unquote, things got to a stage where the head of administration became virtually inaccessible, even to official advisors. And when advice was tendered, it was often ignored. Responsible opinion, including advice by eminent Nigerians, traditional rulers, intellectuals, etc., were similarly discarded. The leadership, either by design or default, had become too insensitive to the true feelings and yearnings of the people. The nation was thus plunged inexorably into chaos. It was obvious that matters could not and should not be allowed in this manner, and in order to give the nation a new lease of life and sense of direction, the following decisions were taken. 1. The removal of General Yakubu Gowon as head of the federal military government and commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Nigeria. 2. The retirement of General Yakubu Gowon from the armed forces in his present rank of general with full benefits, in recognition of his past services to the nation. 3. General Gowon will be free to return to the country as soon as conditions permit. He will be free to pursue any legitimate undertakings of his choice in any part of the country. His personal safety and freedom and those of his family will be guaranteed. 4. The following members of the armed forces are retired with immediate effect, namely Vice Admiral J.E.A. Way, Chief of Staff, Supreme Headquarters; Major General Hassan Katsina, Deputy Chief of Staff, Supreme Headquarters; Major General David A. Joe, Chief of Staff, Army; Rear Admiral Nelson Soro, Chief of Naval Staff; Brigadier E.E. Ikwe, Chief of Air Staff, and all other officers of the rank of Major General or equivalent and above. Alhaji Kam Salem, Inspector General of Police, Chief T.A. Fagbola, Deputy Inspector General of Police, are also retired from service. Also, with immediate effect, all the present military governors and the administrator of East Central State have been relieved of their appointments and retired with immediate effect. As you are already aware, new appointments have been made as follows: Brigadier T.Y. Danjuma, Chief of Army Staff; Colonel John Yisadoko, Chief of Air Staff; Commodore Michael Adelanwa, Chief of Naval Staff; Mr. M.D. Yusuf, Inspector General of Police. Murtala went on to say, unquote, new military governors have also been appointed for the states as follows: Lieutenant Colonel Mohammed Buhari, Northeast; Colonel George Ini, Midwest; Lieutenant Colonel Sani Bello, Kano; Navy Captain Adekunle Lawal, Lagos; Lieutenant Colonel Paul Umu, Southeast; Colonel Ibrahim Taiwo, Kwara State; Navy Captain Akin Aduwo, West; Colonel Anthony Ochefu, East Central; Lieutenant Colonel Usman Jibrin, North Central; Colonel Abdullahi Mohammed, Benue Plateau; Lieutenant Colonel Umaru Mohammed, Northwest; Lieutenant Colonel Zamani Lekwot, River State. He went on to say, unquote, the structure of government has been reorganized. There will now be 3 organs of government at the federal level, namely the Supreme Military Council, the National Council of States, and the Federal Executive Council. There will, of course, continue to be executive councils at the state level. The reconstituted Supreme Military Council will comprise the following: the head of state and commander-in-chief of the armed forces, Brigadier Olusegun Obasanjo, Chief of Staff, Supreme Headquarters, Brigadier T.Y. Danjuma, Chief of Staff, Commodore Michael Adelanwa, Chief of Naval Staff, Colonel John Yisa Doko, Chief of Air Staff, Mr. Emdu Yusuf, Inspector General of Police. It will also comprise of general officers commanding 1st Division Brigadier Julius Akinrinade, 2nd Division Brigadier Martin Adamu, 3rd Division Brigadier Emmanuel Abisoye. It will also comprise of Brigadier John Obada, Colonel Joseph Gaba, Lieutenant Colonel Shehu Yaradua, Brigadier James Oluyole, Brigadier Iliya Bisala, Colonel Ibrahim Babangida, Lieutenant Colonel Murtala Mohammed, Colonel Dan Suleiman, Navy Captain Olufemi Olumide, Navy Captain Hosseini Abdullahi, Mr. Adamu Suleiman, Commissioner of Police, Lieutenant Colonel Alfred Edoluju, Lieutenant Commander Godwin Kanu, Navy. All the civil commissioners in the Federal Executive Council are relieved of their appointments with immediate effect. The composition of the new Executive Council will be announced shortly. We will review the political program and make an announcement in due course. In the meantime, a panel will be set up to advise on the question of new states. A panel will also be set up to advise on the question of the federal capital. The second World Black and African Festival of Arts and Culture is postponed in view of the obvious difficulties in providing all the necessary facilities. Consultations will be held with other participating countries with a view to fixing a new date. He went on to say, finally, we reaffirm these countries' friendship with all countries. Foreign nationals living in Nigeria will be protected. Foreign investment will also be protected. The government will honor all obligations entered into by the previous governments of the Federation. We will also give continued support to the Organization of African Unity, the United Nations Organization, and the Commonwealth. Fellow countrymen, the task ahead of us calls for sacrifice and self-discipline at all levels of our society. This government will not tolerate indiscipline. The government will not condone abuse of office. I appeal to you all to cooperate with the government in our endeavor to give this nation a new lease of life. This change of government has been accomplished without shedding any blood, and we intend to keep it so. Long live the Federal Republic of Nigeria. End of quote. Murtala Mohammed gained wide acceptability across the Federation of Nigeria. He made a lot of changes in the country within a short period of time. But Murtala's story had a tragic end. Barely 200 days into his administration, he was shot and killed at a traffic jam in Lagos on his way to work on 13th February 1976 by a group of soldiers led by Lieutenant Colonel Bokasuka Dimka. Dimka was arrested and taken before a military court-martial at Dodan Barracks. Dimka was found guilty, convicted, and sentenced to death by firing squad. Murtala was flown to his hometown in Kano, where he was buried in accordance with Islamic rites. Thanks for watching this edition of Back in History, and do remember to subscribe to the channel or follow the page for regular notifications on every new video.